The day I married the man I loved, my family told me I was dead to them. For 9 years, not one call, not one message, not one visit came from the people who raised me. Then one rainy evening, my mother knocked on my door, and everything changed. I was 26 when my family disowned me. The reason was simple. I fell in love with Marcus. Marcus was kind, hardworking, honest, and the most caring man I had ever met. But my family saw only one thing. He was black. I spent months trying to convince them that love mattered more than skin color. My father refused to listen. My mother stayed silent. The day before our wedding, my father gave me an ultimatum. If you marry him, you're no longer my daughter. I hoped he would calm down. He didn't. On my wedding day, neither of my parents showed up. My brother didn't come either. Their seats remained empty throughout the ceremony. I cried before walking down the aisle. Marcus held my hands and whispered, "We'll build our own family." And that's exactly what we did. The first years weren't easy. We lived in a tiny apartment where the heater barely worked during winter. Money was tight. Sometimes we worried about paying bills. But we were happy. Marcus worked long hours while I worked as a nurse. Together, we slowly built a life. 2 years later our son Ethan was born. 3 years after that, our daughter Maya arrived. The moment I held my children, I understood what unconditional love truly meant. Something my parents had failed to show me. As years passed, Marcus started a small construction company. He worked harder than anyone I knew. Slowly the business grew. Then it grew again. By our 9th year of marriage, we owned a beautiful home. Our children were healthy and happy. Life wasn't perfect, but it was good. Very good. The only missing piece was my family. Sometimes Ethan would ask questions. "Mom, do I have grandparents?" Every time he asked, my heart broke. "Yes," I would answer softly. "Then why don't we see them?" I never knew what to say. How could I explain prejudice to a child? How could I explain that his grandparents rejected him before they even met him? One rainy Thursday evening, I was preparing dinner when the doorbell rang. Marcus was helping Ethan with homework. Maya sat at the kitchen table drawing pictures. I walked to the door and opened it. My breath caught. Standing there was my mother. For a moment, I couldn't move. 9 years. 9 years had passed since I last saw her. She looked older. Her hair had more gray than I remembered. There were deep lines around her eyes. But it was definitely her. Neither of us spoke. Rain dripped from her coat. Finally, she whispered my name. Emma. The sound of her voice brought back memories I thought I had buried. Pain. Rejection. Heartbreak. "What do you want?" I asked. Tears filled her eyes. "I need to talk to you." Part of me wanted to close the door. Another part wanted answers. So I stepped aside. She entered slowly. Her eyes immediately landed on the family photos hanging on the walls. Photos of Marcus. Photos of Ethan and Maya. Photos of birthdays, vacations, and celebrations. 9 years of memories she had missed. Marcus entered the hallway. For a second, the atmosphere became tense. Then Marcus smiled politely and offered his hand. "Hello." My mother hesitated before shaking it. "Hello, Marcus." I noticed the guilt on her face. We sat in the living room. The silence felt unbearable. Finally, she spoke. "Your father is sick." The words hit me harder than I expected. Despite everything, hearing that my father was ill hurt. "How sick?" I asked. Her eyes filled with tears. "The doctors aren't sure how much time he has left." I looked away. I didn't know what to feel. Anger? Sadness? Sympathy? Maybe all three. Then my mother lowered her head. "There is something else." Immediately I knew there was more to the story. What else? She twisted her hands nervously. We need help. There it was. The real reason she had come. Not because she missed me. Not because she wanted to know her grandchildren. She needed something. My chest tightened. What kind of help? My mother's voice shook. Medical bills. We can't afford the treatment. I stared at her. 9 years of silence. 9 years of rejection. And now she was asking for help. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat quietly. My mother began crying. We made mistakes. Mistakes? I repeated. You abandoned me. She nodded. I know. You never called. I know. You never met your grandchildren. More tears rolled down her cheeks. I know. For the first time, she wasn't making excuses. She wasn't defending herself. She was simply admitting the truth. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out an old envelope. Your father wanted you to have this. I stared at it. My heart began pounding. What is it? A letter. My hands trembled as I took it. The envelope looked old. Very old. As if it had been written years earlier. I slowly opened it. The moment I saw my father's handwriting, my stomach dropped. But before I could start reading, my mother said something that changed everything. My hands trembled as I unfolded the letter. For a moment, I couldn't bring myself to read it. The handwriting was unmistakable. My father's. The same man who had disowned me 9 years earlier. Finally, I took a deep breath and began reading. Dear Emma. If you're reading this, then I finally found the courage to tell you what I should have said years ago. My eyes filled with tears. I was wrong. Just 3 words. Yet they carried the weight of 9 lost years. I convinced myself that I was protecting my family, but the truth is I was protecting my own prejudice. I judged Marcus without knowing him. I pushed away my daughter because of my own ignorance. I stopped reading for a second. The room was silent. Even Marcus looked surprised. I continued. Every year I wanted to call you. Every birthday I thought about reaching out. But pride is a terrible thing. The longer I waited, the harder it became. Tears rolled down my cheeks. I missed your wedding. I missed the birth of my grandchildren. Those regrets will stay with me forever. By the time I reached the end, I was crying. The final line broke my heart. If Marcus is half the man I now believe he is, then he has given you the happiness I failed to protect. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell my grandchildren I loved them even before I met them. I folded the letter slowly. For years, I had imagined what I would say to my father if I ever saw him again. Now I wasn't sure. My mother wiped her tears. He wrote that 3 years ago. 3 years. I whispered. She nodded. He was too ashamed to send it. That night, after she left, I sat on the porch with Marcus. The children were asleep. The letter rested in my lap. What are you thinking? Marcus asked. I looked at him. The man my family rejected. The man who never stopped loving me. The man who had every reason to hate my parents. Instead, he said quietly, people can change. I stared at the letter. Maybe he was right. A week later, we drove to my parents' house. The same house where my father had once told me I was no longer his daughter. My heart pounded as I stepped inside. My father sat near the living room window. He looked much older than I remembered. His shoulders were weaker. His face was pale. But when he saw me, tears filled his eyes immediately. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then he whispered one word. Emma. I broke down crying. So did he. Years of pain crashed over both of us. I'm sorry, he said. His voice shook. I'm so sorry. Those were the words I had waited 9 years to hear. Not excuses. Not explanations. An apology. A real one. For hours we talked. About the past. About the mistakes that had been made. About the years we had lost. Then Marcus walked into the room. My father looked at him. For a moment neither man spoke. Then my father stood slowly. I owe you an apology too. Marcus nodded politely. My father's eyes filled with tears. I judged you without knowing you. Silence filled the room. You loved my daughter when I didn't deserve to be part of her life. Marcus simply said, thank you. It wasn't dramatic. But it was sincere. A little later Ethan and Maya entered the room. My father stared at them. His grandchildren. Children he had never met. Tears streamed down his face. They are beautiful, he whispered. Watching him hug them for the first time was painful and beautiful at the same time. 9 years had been stolen from all of us. Moments that could never be replaced. But at least there was still time. Over the next few months, we visited often. The children grew close to their grandparents. My mother became a regular part of our lives. And little by little, our family began healing. Not perfectly. Some wounds remained. Some memories still hurt. But healing had finally started. Then one afternoon my father called me into his room. His health had become worse. He looked tired. But peaceful. There is something I need you to know, he said. I sat beside him. What is it? He smiled sadly. For years I thought being right mattered more than being loving. Tears filled my eyes. I was wrong. He squeezed my hand. Don't make the same mistake. A few weeks later, my father passed away peacefully. The loss hurt more than I expected. Not because we had years together. But because we had lost so many years already. After the funeral, my mother gave me a small wooden box that had belonged to him. He wanted you to have this. Inside were dozens of photographs. Photos of Marcus. Photos of Ethan. Photos of Maya. Photos he had quietly collected over the years through relatives and friends. My hands shook. Then I found something else. A stack of birthday cards. One for every year he had missed. 9 cards. 9 birthdays. None of them mailed. Every year he had written one. Every year he had been too ashamed to send it. I cried harder than I had cried in years. My father had spent nearly a decade trapped by his own pride. Wanting to reach out. Wanting to fix things. But never finding the courage. And then I realized something. Hatred hadn't only hurt me. It had hurt him too. As I sat holding those cards, I finally understood what forgiveness really meant. It wasn't pretending the past never happened. It was refusing to let the past control the future. Today, my mother spends every Sunday with us. She bakes cookies with Ethan and Maya. She laughs with Marcus. Sometimes we talk about my father. Sometimes we don't. But one thing is certain. Our family is no longer defined by the mistakes that nearly destroyed it. It's defined by the love that survived them. Years after finding those letters, I discovered one last unopened envelope hidden inside the wooden box, and what my father wrote inside changed everything I thought I knew about those missing 9 years. Just when I thought the wounds of the past had finally healed, I discovered a truth about my family that would force me to make the hardest decision of my life.